operations. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. China has now strongly condemned comments and actions by Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi regarding Taiwan, describing them as a serious violation of the One China principle and the spirit of the 4 political documents between the 2 countries. Listen in.
日方有关行径严重违背一个中国原则和中日4个政治文件精神和国际关系基本准则，向台独势力发出严重错误信号，我们对此坚决反对。日方在台湾问题上负有历史罪责，尤应深刻反省历史，恪守一个中国原则和中日4个政治文件的精神，慎之又慎处理涉台问题。正告民进党当局，任何以外谋独、企图将台湾从中国分裂出去的图谋，都是痴心妄想，只会失败的更加彻底。
These remarks have come after Takaichi made a post on social media sharing photos and comments about her meetings and exchanges with personnel from Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party during the APEC Leaders Week. In response, a spokeswoman for China's State Council, Zhang Han, has now stated that Japan's actions violate basic norms in international relations and send a gravely wrong signal to Taiwan's and secessionist forces. She's added that Japan should uphold the One China principle and handle the Taiwan question very carefully. With us on the broadcast is Collins Chong-Hugh Keat, Foreign Affairs and Security and Strategy Analyst, joining us from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Interesting development coming in as far as the China-Japan equation is concerned. We've recently seen a meeting between Sanae Takaichi and Xi Jinping as well. She is known to be a China hawk within the political circles in Japan, and of course her foreign policy is likely to be guided by that principle as well. What do you make at the outset of the Chinese reaction to what she stated, because her position has been very clear so far?
Well, we have seen how Beijing has been trying to court Takaichi, although it's a futile effort. We have seen how Washington has been at the forefront in strengthening ties with this new government, and of course Trump has been fond of her because of similar sentiments and views. And of course Takaichi is a China hawk, and Beijing's attempts to set the record straight, to have this and to set a very positive early phase of ties with administration has drawn futile efforts, and we have seen also how this issue is being blown out of proportion. It is an APEC meeting, it is an economic platform. And of course, it is still within, Japan's position, in not violating any existing norms with China in regards to the One China policy, and it's part of the routine diplomatic engagement with, at the multilateral platform in APEC. So, we see that, Takaichi is steering Japan towards the very, conservative foreign policy frontline, and this has presented a new challenge for Beijing under President Xi now. Indeed. Now that we have seen this, this forefront of extended bulwark of Trump's new engagement with the region, and Takaichi's stance has even amplified Washington's bargaining cards and chips, right from the heels of Trump's presence in Southeast Asia and East Asia. So we have seen now, Beijing is increasingly cornered, and to the advantage of, this new front of democratic nations who are wary of Beijing's intentions and actions in these disputed regions. And I think it sends a very positive signal, not only to East Asia, but also to Southeast Asia.
Indeed, I'll come to Donald Trump just shortly, but before that, I'd of course like to address the equation and what happened in the meeting between Sanae Takaichi and Xi Jinping. After this meeting, she'd come out and stated that their exchange was very candid. She'd also stated that she had raised serious concerns over what's happening in the South China Sea. And she's also highlighted that it's important for both Japan and China to engage in direct and candid dialogue, thus making it very clear that she is not going to mince her words when it comes to her position on China. Who do you think is setting the tone in this particular equation? Because, of course, this is a very assertive statement to give out to the media after her meeting. Do you think the recent statement we've just seen and heard from the Chinese side is an attempt by China to now control the narrative as far as the bilateral equation is concerned?
Well, of course, China has been trying to control the narrative now, but we have seen how Takaichi has been smart and brilliant to reassert the era of increased Japanese presence in this region, and the era of where this region is being used by Beijing as a backyard, as a convenient backyard to expand its soft power and hard power influence is now over with Trump's renewed presence and Trump's renewed commitment to the region. And we have seen this, also Tokyo before this has been under this three-pronged threat from Beijing, from Pyongyang, from Moscow now. So there's practically no choice and no other options for Takaichi unless to further deepen Tokyo's commitment and ironclad defense commitment with Washington to get the attention and trust and the buy-in from Trump. That's what she has been doing now in the early phases of her term. And of course also to reinforce, the position of Japan in East Asia, away also beyond the economic and of course defense partnership with Washington now that this greater influence capacity in Southeast Asia with South Korea now. Of course, also we have seen all these symbolic and powerful messages to Beijing that although Tokyo is seeking positive, of course, mutually beneficial and respectful ties between Tokyo and Beijing, at the end of the day, the core matter that will be of great importance to Tokyo will be to defend Tokyo's sovereign rights and interests, not only in the disputed regions with China now, regards to Senkaku Islands and all that, but also increasingly to protect the maritime security and supply chain security in extended fronts in Southeast Asia, whether it's Strait of Malacca or whether it's South China Sea. These are important maritime routes for Japan, and China can weaponize that, to blockade Japan in times of conflict. So Japan is now trying to bring this, the security of Japan now hinges not only in the near waters of Japan, but also increasingly in the region of Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean also. So that's why we see increased, overtures to this region, of course, also to strengthen Quad and all that. So this is a very positive move by Takaichi.
Indeed, and coming to Donald Trump, we'd seen her meeting with Trump. They were aboard one of the US warships in Japan as well, where Trump had stated that the United States is providing missiles to Japan. Japan has been modifying its destroyers and its naval fleet to accommodate these US missiles, but it seems that Trump is looking at fast-tracking this process as well. And we already know that US does have considerable presence in Japan as well as in South Korea. What is the larger game plan of the United States in the Indo-Pacific to counter China?
Well, we've seen how Trump's plan is to reassure allies, to send a very positive signaling to the region that to correct this misperception of Trump, with his America First policies. Will result in a region of will result in this East Asian or Indo-Pacific region being at the negative end of this decreased U.S. presence in terms of hard power and soft power presence. But we have seen how Trump's move is also to disassociate from the futile policies by Biden with regards to the Squad or even the Quad, right? So we've seen how Trump is trying to reassure this. That also at the same time to compel allies and non-allies alike to increase also their obligations in terms of increasing their budget defense and shared responsibility to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific. And it has to be done on a mutual and respectful basis. And and the era where this region has been taking Washington as a piggyback in terms of defense spending and support is now over. But at the same time, Trump is also trying to set a very positive tone that the the US will still be here to protect them, but also maintaining the leverage on Washington in terms of strategic ambiguity with regards to Taiwan, with regards to other non-allies. And this is a very, strategic move, but also a very reassuring move to the region who has been at the negative end of, Beijing's increased bellicosity in the region. So I would say that Trump's move also is to safeguard Washington's, leverage, but at the same time, trying to send a very positive tone to allies, but also ultimately to send a powerful message to Beijing that, this region is not being abandoned under Trump's watch, and never ever will Taiwan be used as a pretext or as a factor for Beijing to use it as a bargaining chip with Washington. So as we have seen how, they have also recently stated that, Beijing will not invade Taiwan under Trump's watch. That's what we have seen also when Trump stated that, under his watch, the first term, Putin is not moving into Ukraine. So I would see that for that to maintain for now. And I don't see any way for President Xi to provoke or to use Taiwan as pretext to set tones that will be beneficial to Beijing in the months to come.
Indeed, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking some further developments. We're now learning that China has announced that it will suspend some tariffs on goods that it imports from the United States, including certain agricultural products. The tariffs, which had been imposed in retaliation to U.S. measures, will be scrapped starting the 10th of November. However, U.S. soybeans will remain subjected to a 13% tariff, making them still costly for China to purchase in large quantities, especially given the cheaper alternatives from Brazil. Now, this development follows last week's meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in South Korea. Meanwhile, the White House expects China to purchase at least 12 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans in the final months of 2025. These figures have yet to be confirmed by Beijing. In addition to the suspension of some tariffs, China has also decided to remove or suspend non-tariff retaliatory measures, including export controls against U.S. companies. Still with us on the broadcast is Collins Chong-Yu-Kit. Interesting development. We've, of course, been seeing these tensions on the economic front simmering for quite a while between the United States under Trump and China. What do you make of this? Is this a step towards both countries recognizing that they play a very crucial role as the world's two largest economies in maintaining the stability of global supply chains?
Well, Beijing is using this, this move to hold back on the move on the soybean purchase as a strategic leverage for Beijing. This partial tariff rollback is less about trade reconciliation, but more about strategic signaling, a message to global markets that Beijing is seeking stability and without surrendering its leverage and strategic grounds, also as a message to Washington. And this is the platform by Beijing to have this kind of incremental détente moves, small symbolic gestures aimed at rebuilding trust step by step and seeing how the other party respond to that, while also keeping at the same time the strategic leverage that Beijing will have. So we know that, of course, China is the biggest importer for soybeans, but it has increased dependence on its fallback options on different markets, from Brazil and all that. So this is being used also as a greater move, by Beijing to have this kind of increased bargaining costs with Washington. But as I've stated earlier, that Washington has the ultimate card here. Of course, China is dependent on the U.S. market, and Trump's move to bring back wealth and firms and jobs to the U.S. will now stabilize the U.S. market and will increase U.S. wealth, which will in turn increase demand and purchasing power of the U.S. And China is on reliance on that, and with the ever continuing domestic economic downturn of China in terms of property crisis, in terms of demographic crisis. So all these have hampered the options available to President Xi, who is also now facing an increasing time track. So we have seen in all indications, indicators, President Xi will have the upper hand. President Trump will have the upper hand for the U.S.-China economic graph.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking out time and sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World.